More medications, less health. Something's broken. Traditional medicine manages symptoms, but true healing addresses root cause. I'm Josh Rimini, pharmacist turned healer. At Beyond the Pills, we merge ancient wisdom with modern day science to inspire you through stories of transformation, practical trainings, and holistic healing. Join me and other practitioners as we guide you towards vibrant health, body, mind, and spirit, and move beyond symptom management into true healing. Hello. Welcome to this episode of Beyond the Pills. I'm Josh Rimini, pharmacist turned healer. And today I have a friend and colleague with us, Chris Burres. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing wonderful, Josh. How are you?
Oh, great. I'm off studio today. I'm in Asheville hanging out with some of the winter weather, but it's all good. Let me just start out by reading everybody his bio, because it's a really awesome short bio, and we're going to dive right in. But Chris is a published author. He's host of the Uncovering the Secrets of Longevity Health Summit, podcast host, and patent holder with a surprising twist. He's not just a visionary scientist, as you can see in the picture, but also a master of comedy improv. What a cool we're going to talk about that. Chris is the founder and chief scientist at MyVitalC, where he manufactures a Nobel Prize-winning molecule, which we are going to dive into today, responsible for the single longest longevity experiment result in history. I don't know where that's going to go, but it's going to be awesome. A full 90% extension of life. He is at the intersection where science meets laughter, and I'd love to talk more about laughter and how it pertains to health today. And his life's mission is to help people live longer, healthier, happier, pain-free lives with science. Welcome, Chris.
Josh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. We have a lot of things to jump into. We've carved out a lot of time, so I'm ready to jump in and see where this conversation leads us.
Yeah, I'm already getting the tingles here because this is a really cool concept. So tell people a little bit about MyVitalC, what you're doing, and we'll get into the origin story, but talk to us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And in fact, I covered this kind of piece and a lot of what we'll talk about today in my book, Live Longer and Better. From a very young age, I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. The nuances of how I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur are in the book. But I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like. And my thought process was, I'll go to school, I'll pursue the career that is the shortest, fastest way to a big salary so that I can then have money to invest in a company. I didn't know what that company would look like. It turned out that my business partner and I connected in college and started a business when we were still in college in 1991. I've always been really good with people. And I think a lot of that is because I really care. Like, people can tell I care about them. I'm good at listening. I'm good at providing advice. And so to now land in a place where I get to use science, right, which my degree was mechanical engineering. That was the quick degree to a high salary. So I get to use science and I get to deliver value to people and hear amazing testimonials. And then my job is to come on cool shows like yours and have cool conversations. I'm pretty lucky overall. And I'm excited every day I come to work to push the technology further. This is cutting edge supplement and we're pushing it further. We're doing what a lot of supplement companies don't do. We're continuing to do research. About 4 months ago, we published our first paper in a long time, actually, related to the health product that is the ESS60 molecule, that one responsible for the 90% extension of life, which is crazy. And so, yeah, we're doing the things that a lot of people don't do that you really wish they would be doing in the place that we're in.
Yeah, it's such a big tool for all the listeners here to talk about this supplement world, the navigation of this. You know, obviously we connect on, there's so many reasons why we've connected, but a lot of what I've talked about is is always backed by science. It's one of the key pillars of where I feel health and wellness needs to be, not just for health care or sick care. So tell us a little bit about how you got into just the world of longevity here, right? This word is resonating with a lot of people now, right? It's like longevity, vitality. I'm launching a men's vitality membership this year where the 2 tiers are going to be vitality and longevity. So it's already resonating, right? So tell people how you got into the world of longevity here.
Yeah. So first off, it's kind of interesting because I think you're right? We're getting more excited about longevity. At the same time, nobody's excited about longevity. And let me explain that. Right. So, we've already talked about this and we'll get into the molecule. I like these kind of fun conversations that go, back and forth. When I first was talking to people about this longevity experiment where the Wistar rats in this case lived 90% longer than the control group, it is surprising how many people came back and said, well, first, I kind of humorously, I get two responses. If they're from New York and they're like, these rats live 90% longer, you need to bury this research, Chris. This is not good for the city of New York. This is bad.
It's not good for humanity. Why are we going to let rats live longer?
And then the second and surprising result or comment is, why would I want to live longer? And I think we still, I'm going to give you some stats to support this. Still today, we do not have this an ability to separate living longer from living infirmed. We just believe that if I live, the average human is about 82 years old, and people believe in general that every year after 82 is just a painful year, right? We do not separate those two things. And that's supported by, Google search for longevity is not very high. Google search for, anti-aging is a lot higher, but I believe that's in fact, Google will confirm that's more about aesthetics. Like, how do I look younger longer? And couple that on top of, in the bio, you mentioned, I did a longevity summit. I interviewed 55 experts in longevity. That included Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey, Dr. Gundry, Sergey Young, Tom O'Brien, just these leaders, right? And we'll say wellness and kind of lean into longevity. Of these 55 people, I asked every single one of them, how long do they intend to live and how long can humans live? And only 3 gave the same number, right? Because although they believe humans can live on average like 120, right? Because Jean Clement lived to 122, they still weren't interested, right? These are like the cutting edge people in wellness and health and longevity. And they're like, I want to die when I'm done delivering value, which kind of resonated at, 85 or so, but humans can live to 120. So this disparity is something that I'm really excited to be kind of breaking down. And I know, Dr. David Sinclair is really pushing this, and everyone is talking about having, it's not how many, whatever years in your life you can have. It's how much life in your years that you actually have. Yeah. People we're really shifting the mindset about this, right? So that I think is really interesting. There's let me turn that back over to you before I jump into something. I think it's interesting.
And it's funny because, the title of your book, the way that people experience the word longevity has a chronological component to it, which is important. And I have always said this, people have the right to live vibrantly healthy, right? This word vibrant is very subjective, right? And it's great because it's your version of vital, right? Your version of vitality. And this vibrant health. So one of our taglines that are at the pharmacy in Charlotte is the tagline that we've had for 15 years now is live better, stay well. And so people don't want to, we say we want to live longer, but what we really want to live is better longer, right? We want to live longer, but in the space of better. And this is what we're talking about, is not the age of when you expire in this world and you go into the consciousness of everything and you reincarnate, whatever you believe. It's really about how do we take this definition of longevity and make it more of a, like you said, lifespan, not a age span. So I just wanted to like pull that out a little bit because it's really important because it's spot on. In like, if Ben Greenfield's in there saying like, I could live till I'm 120, but I'm out, because our perceptual value is not just, so talk a little bit about that, right? Like we've got this molecule, ESS 60, and all right, we got to go back. Explain the science behind 90% life extension. That to me is, when I read your bio, I would just imagine everyone thinking that one thing. All right, what in the heck does that mean?
Yeah. All right. So we'll go back. I'm in college. I know my business partner, Robert, and we start manufacturing a molecule. And the reality is this is the molecule. It was discovered in 1985. So I'm holding up a model of a molecule. When I say this is a molecule, this is the molecule. And if you're just listening, just imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. You have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a soccer ball. This molecule was discovered in 1985, and the scientist who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996. My business partner and I started manufacturing it in 1991, and the way that kind of evolved is my business partner was working on the University of Houston campus at one of the labs, actually the Texas Center for Superconductivity, which is kind of a relatively, well, it's a famous in the superconductivity world. And he was separating this material. One day, Dr. Paul Chu, who's the reason that whole facility was built, walks in and says, hey, this molecule is selling for $6,000 a gram. You guys are a bunch of young college kids. You should go start a company manufacturing this molecule. And my business partner, Robert, is from an entrepreneurial background, and he did this back of the napkin calculation, which probably just read $6,000 per gram, right? Because it's an impressive amount of money for an impressively small amount of material. And he was off and running. And they brought me on. As I mentioned, I studied mechanical engineering in college. They brought me on to help with drawings, to help with the engineering. The manufacture of this molecule is a very non-trivial process. You actually have to vaporize graphite, which is one of the most difficult substances to vaporize on the planet. So you actually need local temperatures of the sun. So the actual reaction that occurs, we have a sight glass, and if you don't have welder's goggles, you'll burn your retina or you'll get a sunburn. That's literally local temperatures of the sun. It's in an inert chamber. It's at a slight vacuum. So there's all sorts of complexities going on. And that's why I was originally brought onto the project. The material, the reason they won the Nobel Prize in 96 is because the material performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is often when people start getting nervous because they're like, this is a health podcast. You're just inks, batteries, tires, photocells.
Right.
I've literally never woken up and thought, hey, there's my car. There's a battery. I wonder what components of that battery should I be consuming every day to extend my longevity, assuming I want to extend my longevity, right? The story actually gets a little worse first. So on the exterior of this closed cage molecule, and one of the aspects of one of the reasons they won the Nobel Prize is this is the first known closed cage molecule. So it's not a flat molecule. It doesn't extend kind of three-dimensionally into space. It's fully enclosed. There are no dangling bonds on this. And so the molecule, as I mentioned, great inks, batteries, tires, photocells. On the exterior of this cage is one shape of that soccer ball shaped molecule is reminiscent of benzene. You're a pharmacist. You know how benzene is ubiquitous in our society. We don't have modern society without benzene. Just look around everything that's plastic. That would go away. So many detergents, so many medications. You could probably list them more than.
Well, it's all biochemistry, right? It's all molecular biochemistry. It's organic chemistry here. We're talking like the foundation for almost everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So we don't have modern society without this ring, but also when it's all on itself, it's known to be carcinogenic and known to be toxic. And so because that shape exists on the exterior of this ESS60 molecule, they assumed the molecule would be toxic and they put it in a toxicity study. In that study, they gave, again, Wistar rats, one group was given, the control group was given water. Olive oil was another group, and then the last group was olive oil with as much of the ESS60 molecule as they could get to dissolve in the olive oil. And instead of being toxic, the test subjects that were given the ESS60 and olive oil, really the MyVitalC formula, lived 90% longer than the control group. And one really is something that I'm really proud about in that particular study. It's peer reviewed, it's published, right? So the kind of stuff that you would hang your hat and start thinking, hey, this is something that I might want to consume. My lab provided the material, and my lab is mentioned in that original study. So we're kind of, not only have we been manufacturing this molecule longer than anyone on the planet, so since 1991, which just to kind of point out, this is a cool fact. That's 5 years before they won the Nobel Prize. So it is not grandiose to suggest the fact that we were delivering commercial quantities, macroscopic quantities that they could do research with to research institutions around the world for 5 years is probably part of the reason they won the Nobel Prize. So there were in the early days, there are all sorts of theories about, this molecule is probably amazing, right? And you're familiar with not quantum calculations, but just computer simulations of this molecule can do this and it can do that, or might be able to do this. When you finally start getting quantities that you can do studies with is when you start to realize the power of this molecule. And so we probably had an impact on that. So this study, they end up doing this study. It's published in mid 2012. And that is really the thing that shifted me and my business partner from being happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists into getting into the health and wellness space. There's a lot more to the story, but I've thrown a lot out there. I don't know if you want to kind of pick apart some of it.
Yeah, it's all great. I think what's resonating with my mind is when people are asking is like, what in the heck is this molecule and how does it work? Right? It looks like a soccer ball. It looks like perfect sacred geometry to me, actually, when I'm looking at it, like how nature is so beautiful to organize itself. So tell us about how mechanistically, how does ESS60 work in the body at the molecular level?
Yeah. So one of my roles, if it's okay, I'd like to expand on the story and then come to the mechanisms. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Dude, this is a coffee conversation. Okay. We're going wherever it goes.
Because I think it's really interesting, right? So this study comes out in mid 2012. About mid 2013, my business partner and I start getting phone calls and people are like, hey, how much of this stuff should I take? And in our minds, right? You just go back to the car battery kind of example. My business partner are, very conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists were like, wait a minute, you're asking me how much of this stuff that I sell to research institutions around the world to put into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells and make them better, perform better, how much of that should you be consuming? And both of us came up with a resounding, probably none. Now, the literature was clear that it was safe, but again, ultra-conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists were like, you know what? We're going to add not for human consumption to our labeling. So in mid 2013, we added not for human consumption to our labeling. So you think we started the company and delivered our first quantities in 1991 all the way until mid 2013. We don't have to have not for human consumption on our labeling because people kind of thought of it as a benzene. Nobody's going to consume that. Now the study comes out. Now we add not for human consumption to our labeling. This is just kind of an indication that this was not a path that we really wanted to be on, right? To go into wellness.
Well, it feels so interestingly perfect, right? Like how things happen by accident are actually how we discover, right? Look at Viagra. Viagra was not an ED drug.
Yeah.
It was a side effect. And you're like, holy crap. This is how this blockbuster thing happened. It was just like, oh, it does that. So tell us about the accident here, right? I'm just thinking about how you're looking at things. I'm just thinking chemically, like how sticky notes became, it was supposed to be a super glue. And it was like the opposite of it. So talk about the accident forming here. It's so cool.
So the accident ends up, in mid 2013, we're getting the phone call. How much should I take? We say none. We're continuing to get 2 to 3 phone calls a week, and God bless, I love these biohackers, right? And they're wacky biohackers, because I am one now. I'm comfortably in the wacky biohacker space. I've done a lot of the things that the biohackers have done, and I might even be considered a cutting edge biohacker. But they start calling, 2 to 3 times a week going, hey, Chris, my hair is growing back and my knee pain is gone. And we're like, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And they're like, yeah. If my rat weighed 275 pounds, how much should my rat be taking every day?
For people that don't know biohackers, they're like, I always have this principle in my mentorship is do you first. It's like, that's like it's to the extreme. It's like, I'm just going to go and do it. And if it works, great. It's like the self-human experiments I know all these biohackers doing. Yeah, if I was a 270-pound rat with 15% body fat, what would I need to do, right? I love it. It's such a great group of people that are like, it's funny how like all these experiments have been so awesome for us,
Absolutely, right? And so about every quarter, my business partner and I would get together and we're like, hey, do we want to get into this health supplement industry? And our answer was no. Like, we're, again, conservative, happy-go-lucky carbon nanomaterial scientists in that time frame. So this, up until 2017, that was always our answer. In the middle of this time frame, I actually found an article that said 50% of the supplements that this research group had purchased on the market did not have in them what they said they had in them. Right. And if you compare and contrast that, we're selling to research institutions around the world. It's a black powder. When they receive that black powder, they're giving it to a grad student or they're giving it to a research associate, and they're sticking it in an HPLC machine to make sure that we sent them what we told them that, what we sold them.
Yeah.
That is not how the supplement market works. I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit hole of like, what does a 5-star review on Amazon of a supplement actually means? And I kind of jokingly say it means that Amazon harassed that person enough that they left a review before they died, right? Because
well, here's the deal, because I've been teaching this to people for like over a decade now, and especially with Amazon. So it's in a really nice segue to importance on supplement quality.
Absolutely.
And manufacturing. Because coming from the pharmacist side of me, right? Like, people go to the pharmacies and they get a prescription for a drug and they automatically assume quality control is done, FDA has approved the drug and the manufacturing practices. And it's still even a little shady when you go into the generic manufacturing in China and India and stuff. However, when people go to the store or they go online or they have this perceptual efficacy, quality concerns, and then you went into Amazon, and so there's articles around this, but people like, buyer beware. If you don't know, this is why I'm so ingrained with, for the last 15 years, I've only been selling professional grade supplements. I've only gone through the whole process of, can you prove to me with a certificate of analysis, all these other things, because what you just said is really true. So I want people to understand Amazon themselves have actually admitted selling counterfeit supplements on their. So we have to be very careful. And I just thank you for putting that awareness touch up there, because we'll talk about quality. We'll talk about manufacturing practices, but you went on the other extreme, right? You went, holy crap. Half the stuff doesn't even contain anything on the label, and in fact probably might have counterfeit stuff. And then on the other side, you're like HPLC grade chemistry on this side, and you brought that to the supplement world, which is really, really cool. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. And we didn't want to, literally. So from 2013, mid 2013 till 2017, and my business partner are getting together every quarter. We're like, no, we don't want to get into that industry. And, I found that article. It's just a suspect industry, right? Like maybe that's the right phrase. That's maybe even a generous phrase. Right. So it wasn't something that we were interested in getting into. And then at the latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting, taking it on a daily basis. And our phone went from 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. And now my business partner, like a couple of things are rolling around in our mind. One of them is that what typically happens in the supplement space is going to happen in that space. And we're uniquely positioned to be the counteraction to that, right? What I mean is there's going to be people who come into this industry and they're going to put out products that are just significantly inferior to what the original study was about. And we're in a unique position. We have the HPLCs. We have the lab. We're the lab that provided, like, we're in this unique position. And the other is just kind of really, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. This went from being, hey, that'd be kind of interesting and it's a supplement and that makes me nervous, to like, okay, it's 10 phone calls a day. Like, this is a legitimate business opportunity that we probably shouldn't pass up. And we can deliver a lot of value. So at the beginning of 2018, we really started bringing this product to market. And that's when I started focusing on, okay, let's really understand the paper. Let's really understand what the technology is going on. If I'm going to be coming on shows like yours, I've got to have what are the mechanisms of action going on? And that's kind of what started this. And I'll jump into those unless you got anything that you want.
Well, it's a beautiful story, right? You're solving a problem, and that problem the problem you're solving was people were using it. It was out of your control, like the biohackers and everybody. And then all of a sudden it wasn't the opportunity presented itself, is the opportunity presented itself. And then you, entrepreneurial wise, like, well, enough people ask, you got to solve the problem, right?
Yep.
And so you're serving the problem that was already asked in ways in which you can. And it unfolded in the way you at least expected it, which makes it always so much cooler because, yes, that's how it's supposed to happen. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the molecule, how it works, what you've been, I love this piece because what we're doing now is talking about, because, there's thousands of supplements out there and everybody's like, well, how do I take this for that? And this I call it the green pill for the ill, not just the pill for the ill. It's the green pill for the ill. Is like, talk to people about the science and what you've done, because you've had all this backstory before you went to market. You had all this research and data that was moving, and then you dug deeper so you could be more prepared, is what I heard, to serve the market in a better way.
Yeah. So my role, step in, try and understand what's going on, we do a lot of research on like, how could we make the product better? Is there a higher concentration? Those are, kind of standard chemistry things that we're doing. But my role that we're talking about right here was like, what is the mechanism of action? So I can share with you our most consistent testimonial is people take the product actually in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And the reality is, we all know sleep is good for our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. And if we could just improve sleep, whether that be the length of sleep, which is debatable, but the depth of sleep, certainly, if we can just do that, then we would be improving all of these things. And we had head to toe testimonials while it still said not for human consumption on the labeling, right? So anytime you're talking about a cutting edge, anytime you're talking about a cutting edge molecule, right? You're like, okay, well, how much of this placebo is placebo? Because like some of it is, like, that's just the reality of every medication you've ever sold, right? As a pharmacist.
Well, and we can dive into that later, because I love nurturing the placebo effect. Like it's something we should nurture, not throw out in the water, because there is a piece to talk about. 30% of people get better off nothing. What's that nothing? So we'll put a placeholder there, because my healer in me talks about that quite a lot. So continue.
Well, and I think that's really smart. And it runs counter to the scientist in you, right? You're a pharmacist. So you have all this science and a lot of that is like, anecdotes don't matter, right? And you shouldn't be, the study only counts if it's removed the placebo effect. But then you get on the other side, you're just like, yeah, but the placebo effect helps people. Like it literally, people get healing if they have the right understanding about whatever it is they're getting. And I think that just juxtaposition is really, really amazing. So you want to be concerned about the placebo effect. Just know that all of the marketing that we do today about what benefits people are getting were what customers told us when it said not for human consumption. So there's you can't say that there's an entire removal of the placebo effect, but there's a significant removal of the supplement of the placebo effect. Because the packaging was just like, actually, don't take this. Like that, the packaging isn't like, this is good for, focus and energy and better sleep that night. No, don't take it.
It was the effects of taking it, right? It's like, these are the things that happened. And it's a beautiful scenario, right? I just love how this is forming up for you because you didn't do anything. Like people took it. Yeah. And here's the effects they got. So now we went down that road, right?
Yep. And then, okay, so how do we explain these effects? And the first thing is that sleep, right? So if you just improve sleep, great. That could explain everything. I like to dig further. If you look at longevity, a lot of the medical community thinks of longevity in terms of an oxidation or an inflammation process. And we can check both of those boxes. And we have to be very careful with the inflammation side of things. But on the antioxidant side of things, there's an ad hoc study on the web showing us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And then there's peer-reviewed published research showing us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. And so we definitely have a check in that column. And I'm actually going to come back to antioxidant because there's a unique mechanism of action, which is our current kind of really strong theory. When you talk about inflammation, you have to be really careful. You'll know this. The FDA says that talking about chronic inflammation is talking about the diseases of chronic inflammation, which are the diseases of aging, right? So if you're talking about chronic inflammation, you're talking about Alzheimer's, arthritis, cardiovascular disease, cancers, it's the same. So you have to be very careful how you talk about it. Because you need a lot of research to be able to make any claims in that area. What we're allowed to say is that we address inflammation, that type of inflammation that is induced by, say, exercise or acute inflammation. And so we've all had a tough workout. We've all maybe walked longer than we normally do. And that next day you feel that inflammation in your body. We absolutely can say we address that type of inflammation. We just got to do a lot more research, and it's impressively expensive research to talk about any chronic inflammation. I will add that we fit perfectly in an anti-inflammatory diet, right? So that's the diet associated with the blue zone people. Those people tend to live longer. They tend to have reduced incidences of stroke, reduced incidences of heart attacks. We fit perfectly in that anti-inflammatory diet. So now I want to come back to the antioxidant piece, because we have the current theory. We like to say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss buffering oxidative stress system. And this is kind of I've got a long analogy here, so just bear with me, but let me kind of frame it up first. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. That's already an important piece, because you couple that with the fact that, yes, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's check. Like check one.
Yeah.
It's got to get to the mitochondria.
Really
Vitality.
Yeah. If you had a room full of mitochondrial medical experts and you're like, hey, would you like to have a free radical sponge in the mitochondria while it's producing ATP for the cell? They would all raise their hand and they would say yes. Now, when you say free radical sponge, why do we say that the ESS60 is a free radical sponge? Even back in the 90s, when this was initially discovered, it was understood that it can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of this cage, right? So negatively charged particles are those free radicals. So here's what the boss theory says. Your mitochondria, just real briefly, most of your audience, if not all of it, is going to know the powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in your body, except for blood cells, which have 0, and brain and nerve cells, which have 2 million. That's how much energy we use to power our brain and to actually run our nervous system. Mitochondria as the powerhouse, just like every other powerhouse we're kind of aware of, there's a negative byproduct, right? Your car going down the road has exhaust. Your power plant has a smokestack. In the case of mitochondria, it's got negative reactive oxygen species, negatively charged particles called reactive oxygen species. Internal to the mitochondria, those are typically managed by the antioxidants, glutathione and melatonin. A lot of people don't realize melatonin is a great antioxidant.
100%.
And it is one of the ones that's resident inside the mitochondria. Also, interestingly, right, because I told you our most consistent testimonial, take it in the morning, better sleep at night. We've got melatonin, which is that sleep hormone. We also know that we can stress our bodies and different areas of our bodies will get stressed. And when these mitochondria are stressed, the glutathione and melatonin get overwhelmed and additional reactive oxygen species are left to run. I kind of like to picture them like little oxidative bumper cars running around, rusting everything that they bump into, right? Well, we understand that this molecule, this ESS60 molecule, is in the mitochondria, and we believe it holds on to those negatively charged particles so that they can't do any damage. And I have a kind of fun analogy here. This is maybe my kind of improv background that put this together. So it's Mardi Gras. It's the end of Mardi Gras, and you're on Bourbon Street, and you got these drunk reactive oxygen species running around doing damage on Bourbon Street. And you've got the police, the glutathione and the melatonin, coming in and handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when the police are overwhelmed? They throw them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of this ESS60 cage so that they can't do any damage until they can replenish the glutathione and the melatonin, and then they can handcuff themselves to the reactive oxygen species that are attached and get them off of Bourbon Street. And that's really why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss, buffering oxidative stress system.
I love it. So my pharmacist brain always likes to quote unquote dumb it down, right? Get it to a place where people can take this high level science and bring it down into what's applicable for them, and the functional provider in me as well. So people that are listening, it's really important. Like, mitochondria are essential for health and longevity and energy, right? If you get to the root cause, you're going to get into the whole energy component. If you don't have energy, you don't have life. If you don't have life, your cells can't flourish. And if those life-producing batteries, these mitochondria, which are actually bacteria, and you get them from your mom, you don't get them from your dad, by the way. Like, people realize this has been inherent in us forever. So we have to talk, if we're talking vitality and longevity, we have to talk mitochondria. And if we're talking mitochondria, what's the rate limiting factor? Is there more of them, and do they die off faster, right? So if they're there and they're around, and I love what you said about the brain and the nervous system and cardiovascularly too, this is where the highest concentration of mitochondria are. However, we don't just make them on demand. We got to figure out how to keep them around longer. So what you're saying is this soccer ball allows the bad stuff that happens inside and outside of the mitochondria it kind of holds the pattern for it, right? So melatonin and glutathione, which I think people know by now, right? They know these are the building blocks for antioxidant support, which I really appreciated you saying, because I've been using them both quite a bit, especially melatonin lately, at high doses for a lot of good purposes, because it's super safe. And I always say the side effect of glutathione is literally poverty, because you can't take enough of it. So the only side effect is poverty. And CoQ10, all these factors that are helping the mitochondria. So I just wanted to pause and thank you for that analogy, because I think we learned through visualizing that, right? Is like this molecule now can just, it's there for it's the boss, right? It's saying, all right, all this stuff's there. We're going to hold it until you guys can come in and take care of the problem. rather than it go running havoc. And then so it's kind of like you got in front of the front to get that working. So that's a beautiful way to hear it and say it. Thank you.
And there's another kind of component, right? Because we understand, and I think this is fairly recent, that these reactive oxygen species are also a signaling molecule, right? So we actually, if we trapped every single one of them, or if we trapped them and prevented them from being a signaling molecule, then that might be detrimental to the system. And we're not getting that kind of testimonials from people. So what we actually think is that it holds on to these reactive oxygen species, but they're still able to act as a signaling molecule. They're not doing the oxidative stress, the oxidative damage, but they still are signaling the relevant molecules. Hey, one of the things I think that comes out of additional reactive oxygen species is mitogenesis. So these are overwhelmed mitochondria. We need more mitochondria to manage what's going on to produce enough power. And so I believe that that's the kind of the last step of this theory is not only does it hold on to them and prevent them from doing the damage, but I've got a good testimonial I'll share here in a second, but it also allows them to continue to do the signaling that they want.
And that's huge, by the way, when people hear this stuff, is because what I heard you say is it allows the body to still put the markers out that it's supposed to in order to heal itself, right? Healing is the new healthcare. And so when we can take things that exist in nature and allow the body to do its thing, right? That's what I just heard. It's like, oh, these things are bad. They're there. But the body can now use that as information to go do the thing it's supposed to do without this, I don't want to call it the side effect, but you know what I'm doing, like without the damage that it can cause. Because then now you have a molecule or a thing that can actually allow the body to turn on the things it needs to, turn on the genes and the proteins and all the things that need to manufacture and move it to that, right? It's like kind of like the way my analogy works is like, we know when you get cut on a finger and your immune system's going to go do it. But imagine getting cut and without all the bleeding and all the stuff that happens from the wound, having all those modifiers come in anyway, which is awesome. That is when you started saying that, I just started like resonating. Like that is a huge thing for this because you're getting way in front of mechanism. You're actually allowing the body to do its mechanism rather than like a drug, let's say, that turns the light switch on or off regardless.
Yeah, and there's and really this was presented to me. There's a guy, Chris Gethin. He's a bodybuilder. He really helps people kind of transform their lives physically. And he did a presentation at the last biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's biohacking. It may have been where we first made contact. No, I think we made contact at Mindshare initially. Mm-hmm. But it's funny. This is how like I'm not supposed to be in this space. Kind of. He comes to me and he goes, "Hey, I'm doing a presentation tomorrow, and I'm going to talk about your product." And in my mind, he was going to talk about antioxidants and anti-inflammatories and that kind of stuff. No, he was literally talking about MyVitalC in his presentation at the biohacking conference. And the context was antioxidants have been known to reduce the hormetic response, right? So the hormetic response is, classically in the bodybuilders, you stress the muscles, right? By you lift to failure. By the way, you should be doing that. Like that's an important thing to be doing as you age, is you should be lifting heavy things to the point of almost failure. But as you do that, your body has this hormetic response. So it builds muscle strength. It builds muscle mass. And if you take too many antioxidants, you can dampen that hormetic response, which you actually don't want. Like there's a purpose for that. And he was talking about one of the first kind of in my mind to talk about if we're holding on to those those reactive oxygen species, but allowing them to do the signaling so we do continue to get that hormetic response, then you have the kind of perfect antioxidant because it's preventing the oxidative damage, but it's allowing the hormetic response. It's not interfering with that hormetic response. And I think that's a key component.
Yeah, it's it's new age thinking, right? This is what we're talking about here. We're talking new age medicine. We're not talking like drug and disease state, like cause and effect, right? It's like you're moving it down this pathway of where I still feel this is why it's perfect to have on this podcast is like these things are interactive players in the body's ability to do what it's supposed to do, which is hormesis and homeostasis. Like that's why our bodies work. We're doing the things and we're giving the tools in the toolbox for our bodies to already do what they're supposed to do and unlock them in easier ways. This is kind of the biohacking piece, right? And so let me skip a little bit on this. Is like, what's the most surprising effects you've seen from this molecule? What are some of the things you've heard from people that you didn't even think would happen?
Well, I'll share.
And by the way, let's put the little question mark and the little asterisk here. We're not making any claims in this damn podcast. I just want to know. This is why I love podcasts, because we don't have to go down the FDA route. We just talk about real life.
Let's throw in the FDA disclaimer, right? So the FDA has not evaluated our product. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. As I share anecdotes, I really just like to say, hey, just assume this isn't going to happen for you. Dig into the research. If this is something you want to try, great. We're going to give a link and you have the ability to try it. When you say the surprising thing, I have to tell you, it actually came to me at the A4M conference. And it started actually at the biohacking conference, Dave Asprey's event. Had this conversation with, his name is Lane. I can't remember his last name right now. And I just kind of followed up with him on Friday because you'll hear from this story why I need to follow up with him. He came to me and he says, and I actually did a video recording of him, and he said, Chris, I've been giving this to my clients and I can tell you this. I don't care if you're a man, a woman, if you're pre-surgery, post-surgery, diabetic, if you're fighting cardiovascular disease, fighting cancer, your product in 4 to 6 weeks reduces C-reactive protein dramatically. Now, C-reactive protein is an inflammatory marker, right? So when your body is in chronic inflammation, C-reactive protein is something that you would see elevated. He described to me a case where he had a client, and I don't know how long he had been tracking this client, but the client was sitting at a C-reactive protein of 9. By the way, I have a lot of research before I really even know what that means. But he was at a C-reactive protein of 9. It wasn't moving. 4 to 6 weeks into our product, brought it down to 0.9. This is surprise. Again, remember, if you just kind of roll back a little bit, I've been manufacturing this molecule to give to research institutions around the world to make inks, batteries, tires, and photocells better. And this guy comes to our booth and says it drops C-reactive protein. This is a highly desirable marker to drop, right? Like that's what you want to drop. I would say that that's the most surprising, and I will be following up with him. C-reactive protein is a fairly, we've done some ad hoc studies. We did a sleep study, got 10 people to go through that. It's hard to recruit people and get them to fill out a survey. It's really surprising how hard that is. Even if you'll send them free product. But the way that sleep survey worked is we collected 10 days of sleep data prior to them starting the product, 10 days on it, 10 days off of it, and then 10 days back on it, right? So we had this cycling effect. We were asking questions like, how easy was it to fall asleep? How restless were you? And how was your sleep? How do you rate your sleep? And how do you rate how you woke up in the morning? 100% of the people who filled out this survey reported improvements when they were on the product. Like just straight across the board, there were some improvements on deeper sleep, or we'll say better because we didn't ask about deep sleep. That's really hard to track. Even an Oura Ring doesn't do a great job of tracking deep sleep. But improved sleep and waking up feeling better, and easier to fall asleep. And that was consistent across all our customers. So we're going to do a C-reactive protein. It's a pretty inexpensive test. So we can do some tests, get them on the product for about 6 weeks and do another test, and we'll have some good understanding of that. But that, I would say, is the most surprising. And maybe that's my answer now, because, really we brought this product to market and have tens of thousands of customers really since 2018. And so now just most of the testimonials we get, I'm just not surprised when people come in and say it's improved. I've got testimony. Again, this is testimonials. This probably won't happen for you. But I have a lady who's in tears because of her insomnia that she had visited many people to try and solve. And now, having tried our product, the way she described it in tears was that her partner is getting to know her again. Right? Because if you're not getting sleep, you're not you, right? Like, in fact, you're potentially on the verge of death if you're not getting sleep. Like, I don't know if you know this.
Humans can't live too long without sleep. And I love how you keep bringing this back, because people always want to go for like the most complicated process. And one of the things I teach in my programs and RX to Wellness is wellness made simple. And if the number one thing I think people get out of this program today was the number one longevity tool is sleep. Like beyond diet, beyond exercise, it's the scientists have proved if you can improve your sleep, you will live longer, better, faster. It's just so. And how do you improve sleep? Because it's the hardest thing to think about for people. Is like, you can't just take a sleep product. It's like you got way in front of that. Because I'm just thinking mechanistically in my brain, because that's what a pharmacist and a wellness, like functional medicine guy does. Like, is like you get this and it's automatically letting glutathione and melatonin work at its best, right? And you see it. You see the effects of this thing are in 10 days, you're getting better sleep. Subjectively, maybe objectively with an aura. And so you're kind of like saying, instead of taking something for longevity, you're taking it so you can have all these things happen in the body that the body can now be better at what it's doing, So you're helping the mitochondria, you're helping the sleep, like you're getting down to this root thing. So how can people... Like, where do people get this stuff? Is it online only? Like, where now we're got to talk a little bit about like, oh, that sounds cool. Maybe I should try this, because it isn't a bona fide supplement. It is generally recognized as safe. You can sell it now and consume it. But tell us a little bit about that in your book, like this whole thing, how it culminated to where we are today.
Well, one thing that we haven't touched on, and I think this is will resonate good with your audience, is sometimes, and we just haven't got to it because we've been going down so many paths. Sometimes people are like, "Hey, is this just a molecule that you manufacture in a reactor? Is this naturally occurring? Like, what is the status of this molecule?"
Yes, I did. That was one of the things.
I think that's really important. And the reality is we have all already been exposed to this molecule. If you collect the soot from a candle, and usually you just put a cold steel plate over a candle flame, right? And you'll get that black soot on that cold plate. That black soot will have parts per million or parts per billion of the ESS60 molecule. So everyone has absolutely been exposed to this already. And it's just not enough to be appreciable to put in, to dissolve in olive oil. So our typical recommended product is olive oil. We actually have an avocado oil and an MCT oil, but is olive oil. And we're getting that. Those are the only ingredients. It's like that thing that you could collect from a candle, right? We actually manufacture in a reactor to get quantities that are appreciable. And a high quality extra virgin olive oil. Like, that's the only two ingredients. So I think that's really important and will resonate with your audience. The way people can get this is, and then I have a couple more testimonials that I think are worth sharing, is we've got a URL for your audience, right? So myvitalc.com/beyond the pills. And we actually have a coupon code that's worth $15 off of the initial order. You just go to that URL to get that coupon code. So that's myvitalc.com/beyond the pills. And when you go there, I mentioned olive oil, avocado oil, and MCT oil. I'll just share like my daily routine so people have some perspective. Do you do bulletproof coffee? Have you tried bulletproof coffee? Is it in your?
I do a version of that. I have mushroom infused cold bean coffee that I use. And then in the day I do cacao with adaptogens.
Okay. So I do I'm like you, a little modified. I get rid of the ghee. I just didn't want the calories. I don't like the taste that much. But I do use MCT, but I use our MCT. So I put about 1.5 teaspoons of our product in my coffee. While that's blending, I'll take 1.5 teaspoons of our olive oil. And then usually for lunch, I'm having a salad and I'll put avocado oil on that. I think I said that right. So MCT in the coffee, olive oil in the morning, and then avocado on my salad. When somebody goes to that URL, myvitalc.com/beyond the pills, they'll be able to find those 3 oils. If people ask me, hey, which one do you recommend? We recommend the olive oil for 2 key reasons. The first reason is we're a research-based organization, and all the research is on the ESS60 molecule in olive oil, right? So that's number 1. Number 2 is you get the highest concentration of the ESS60 molecule in olive oil. So you get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and about 0.3 in MCT oil. The other thing I'll share with you on that URL is you can get a 25% discount by going on subscription. So even if you're just going to get it once, go on subscription. Our customer service team has 950 5-star reviews on Google. They are not trained to talk you out of your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do an amazing job. Just might as well take advantage of that discount. And frankly, a lot of people do stay on subscription. You mentioned the book, right? So the book is Live Longer and Better. Just a fun piece about the book. My co-author is a 2-time New York Times #1 best-selling author. It's so difficult to just get on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Yeah.
He's been on the #1. It's exponentially harder. He's been on #1 twice. So lucky to be working with Dr. Jerome Corsi. And so he's my co-author. The book is probably not on that landing page, but you can go through the menu structure. Go to the landing page, get that coupon, go to the menu structure. You can find the book. The book is $20. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on the website. On the website, we have a special thing. If you want me to sign the book, we charge $10 for that, but that full $10 fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. That's an organization. There was a movie called The Sound of Freedom that came out in 2024 about child sex trafficking. And I happened to see him speak before that movie came out. And so the full $10 from that signature goes to Operation Underground Railroad. So happy to sponsor that. And also, if you want Dr. Jerome Corsi's signature, it's $15. That full $15 goes to Operation Underground Railroad. Excited to be supporting them. And I think that's I would love it if you would help me grow my Instagram account. And that's just going to be the handle MyVitalC, C as in carbon, MyVitalC.
I love it. Purpose driven with passion, right? That's the things that we're talking about here. I'm loving how this conversation went. I have a copy of your book. I've started reading it. I love this world of, the one thing that I'm still sticky with, because you're in biohacking too, is everybody keeps asking me about NAD, NMN, NMM. Like, so how does that play into this world of longevity? If you could give someone one thing to do towards this vitality and longevity, talk a little bit about that, only because for some reason that's what everybody's that metformin. But like, let's talk about like this NAD thing and how you think your product and this product, like how do they play with each other here?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I need to do a little bit more digging to understand how they play with each other. And I will share with you that guy Lane had come to my booth and said, the one thing I can tell you, Chris, no matter the current status of the patient, is that it increases NAD. That also kind of it would have surprised me because it wasn't on my radar, but wouldn't have surprised me because the consistent testimonials that we have. I think there is some jury, I'm like you, I'm constantly reading, I'm constantly listening to books, watching videos to understand and then digging into the papers to understand like what is the real implication. I think there's a product called Nuchido out there. It's Nicole Conlin. I think it's Conlin, Nicola. Her name is Nicola Conlin. I had the opportunity to interview her for the Longevity Summit. And she has an interesting perspective, which is her product ostensibly addresses the process of making NAD versus just giving the components. Her example, and I love her example, is if you have a factory and the factory's not working and you just keep sending in raw resources, the factory can't produce anything better. So her approach is let's fix that factory that makes NAD plus and not just throw it, because people are typically sending it NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide, I think, or NR, like they're throwing the raw ingredients. And her point is, well, if the factory's not working, the raw ingredients don't matter. I think that's a very interesting approach. I'm also going to take the time. There are some other supplements that I'm always taking something, but there are some other supplements that are kind of continuously in my stack. The one that resonates and I would encourage everyone to take is creatine. Like, I think the data on creatine for muscle is incredible. And I mentioned earlier, like, we need to be lifting heavy things. Sarcopenia, right? Muscle wasting as we age is an absolute significant concern and a significant indicator of longevity. Also, I think it's a great indicator of just quality of life, right? Like, one of the points that Peter Attia makes as he's talking about going from medicine 2.0 to 3.0 is like, if you just want to be able to get yourself off the toilet when you're significantly older, you have to have strength, and that strength tends to decline. So you need to be working on that strength today.
Yep.
And so I think creatine is good for that. I've heard the kind of data on improvements in mental function from creatine, also pretty amazing. And I even have a buddy of mine, I'm in a networking group, and he served in the military, has some PTSD issues, and I think he 5x'd his creatine, and it alleviated like 85% of his kind of PTSD condition. So I think there's a lot of value in creatine, and I think that's just going to continue to come out. And the rest, like, I continue to take stuff, but the reality is I'm taking my product, creatine, and then nothing else actually really resonates. Like, I'm not married to anything else. If it fell off of my desk and I didn't see it again, I wouldn't notice.
I love it. No, it's good because that's a key piece, because everybody always asks, what do you do? Right? What do you do? Right? It's always in that space. And for me, it's always like, if you optimize the simple, don't go to the complicated. Like, get in front of it. Like, I'm a big fan of optimizing omega-3s and magnesium and vitamin D, because it's actually literally the first question I said, are you optimized on these 3 nutrients? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, let's start there.
Yeah, you're right. Vitamin D is also another one. That one, I might not notice it falling off my desk, but then I would get back to it because, everybody's talking about the importance of vitamin D. And then you mentioned something I think important, like, what do you do, right? And this is just one outcropping of the Longevity Summit. I asked everybody for 2 to 3 shortcuts for longevity, right? And then I kind of aggregated the data. 33% mentioned sleep. 52% mentioned exercise, which I like to call movement and exercise.
Yeah.
52 mentioned diet, and then 46 mentioned mindset, which at first, my first reaction, because we talked in the beginning about the importance of sleep. Like it's just so important. Again, 33% mentioned sleep. And I was like, maybe they got this wrong, because sleep is good for your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. But then I started thinking about, but usually this is in the context of a journey, right? We're typically having conversations with people who are on a journey. And if you don't have the mindset, right? If you understand you need to You control your sleep. Put your device away. Go to sleep at the same time. Have a cold room. Make sure you got blackout windows. Use blue light blockers. If you don't have the mindset to make that change, you're not going to improve your sleep. If you know you need to be moving and you have the mindset to make that change, it's not going to happen. And if you also need to change your diet and you don't have that mindset, then it's not going to happen. So I think mindset is really way up there, and maybe it's 100%. Like 100% of people should be saying, you got to get your mindset right. Which, by the way, if they're talking to you, if they're kind of following this podcast or my podcast, they probably have a lot of the mindset already. But I think mindset is just paramount.
Well, it's a whole nother, we could riff on that all in itself. Cause like one of my core focuses is how do you change your lifestyle habits? We talk like these are the pillars, right? Sleep, exercise and movement, diet and nutrition, stress management, and relationships, right? And so getting to that is always the key, right? It's what's the first step in losing 100 pounds? It's not losing 100 pounds. It's putting on your damn shoes.
Yeah.
Right? It's like moving people in that. That's why I love Joe Dispenza's work and the neuroscience of change and being a consultant in his work is because, you know, we have to get to that root cause. It's like everybody in the planet will not disagree with what we're saying if they have the right mind. Like you got to eat right. You got to sleep right. You got to poop right. You got to do all that stuff. But what's stopping people from doing that? There's always an excuse, a something thing. And so this neurological component is really important around that word mindset, right? Set and setting, like the environment that you create for yourself. Because at the end of the day, we all know 70 to 90% of all chronic conditions are a lifestyle problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting in front of that is, I'm really glad that you brought that up because that is the catalyst for it all. It's literally mindset. So appreciate that, Chris. It's really amazing. So we got the website. You can go to MyVitalC /Beyond the Pills. We know how to get the product now. They can get a discount just by listening to this thing. If they're used to it, that's great. I always say we don't sell, we just offer value, right? They can get a copy of your book. I love that you sign it and with purpose, right? Sign it and we're going to go help an amazing cause. So amazing. Is there anything else you want the listeners to know or do before we drop the mic on this conversation?
Would it be okay if I shared arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement ever?
I love cautionary tales. Now, before we do that, I just want to tell everybody the absolute worst supplement in the entire universe is the one you bought but never took.
Yeah.
So I love cautionary tales. Please let's do that.
Now that you throw cautionary tale, I have to share that it's not the worst testimonial. It's like the worst positive testimonial about a supplement. So it goes like this. So we've got a lady, Gwen, is our largest distributor here in Houston. That's where we're based, here in Houston. And I did an interview with her, and she shared with me that she had initially purchased the product for her dog. She had no intention of taking it. She bought the product for her dog, and she noticed such a profound difference in her dog that then she was like, oh, I probably should be taking this also, right? And one of the things, just to pause there, dogs aren't subject to the placebo effect. Right? Like, ironically, they're not smart enough to trick themselves. Oh, I got the dropper, so I'm going to have more energy today. They either are feeling it or they're not. But that interview went on, and she said, if you had asked me at the 3-month mark, because this is sometimes people ask, like, hey, how quickly can we show results? That guy Lane said it's 4 to 6 weeks, and you can see a drop in C-reactive protein. I do have a testimonial where a lady shared in a video that she didn't finish her cup of coffee, so noticed something that same first day. Gwen was like, at the 3-month mark, if you had asked me, have I noticed anything? My initial response would have been no. But then I started taking stock of my life, right? I'm working a little bit later. I'm waking up earlier, and I never was really a morning person. And I think that ties in with the sleep. And then arguably the worst testimonial about a supplement, I cleaned my garage. We don't use that in any marketing literature. But it also does mean something, right? Like that's either a big project. Maybe your garage is really dirty, or maybe there's some emotional baggage in your garage that is challenging. And actually reminds me of one other testimonial I'd like to share. But yeah, she ended up cleaning her garage. So I think that does have some impact. And the one that just triggered is, we talked about 2 million mitochondria in your brain cells and in your nerve cells, right? So this could easily be one of the reasons that we're getting better sleep, because we're actually having better functioning mitochondria while we're sleeping. And we know that a lot of brain cleanup happens while we're sleeping. This lady shared a testimonial. The beginning of the testimonial, she was like, "Hey, I'm in the middle of quitting smoking," which in my mind, there was no way I was going to get a positive testimonial from somebody in the middle of quitting smoking. Because if you've been around somebody who's quitting smoking, they usually don't have anything positive to report about life in general, right? Like the positive thing is, I wish I could have another cigarette. But she went on, and what she described, it was actually a very positive testimonial. And she described that she found herself to have a longer fuse. She had a 5-year-old, and she has a longer fuse with her 5-year-old. So we get this balance, this testimonial of balance. And again, if you're just getting better sleep, you're going to have a longer fuse with your 5-year-old or your significant other. And so I think there's a number of reasons to try the product, and see what happens for you. And we've kind of left it out there, myvitalc.com/beyond the pills to go grab some.
I love it. And then that last piece is really important, is like, I always tell people it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for biochemistry to take over. Right. So that's just, it's this universal truth that I've known in practice for so long, is like, try it for a month or so and see how it works for you. So try MyVitalC. This is amazing, because this is like, it's perfect timing for me, because we're launching our longevity protocol, like real simple. And we're going to be building this piece into it just so people can, instead of having to choose this, or this, it's like, here's one common thing we can do that's going to have a downstream effect for a lot of stuff. And when we do those types of activities well, I feel we're moving in the right direction rather than trying to pinpoint something along the way. So this was an amazing conversation. Thank you, Chris. I can't wait to dive in a little bit more on this. Obviously, the scientist in me is going to look into this a little bit more because I love it, like not because I don't love it. So I can't wait. Go to the website, try for yourself, and I'm sure we'll have another conversation as these studies come into fruition. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for putting a difference in people's lives and helping them live longer, better lives.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Stay well, everyone. Thanks for joining me today on Beyond the Pills. If our mission to de-prescribe 10 million unnecessary medications resonates with you, share this episode, subscribe, and leave a review. Whether you're a practitioner or someone ready to reclaim your health, visit rx2wellness.com for free resources to begin your journey. Together, let's go beyond the pills and co-create a world of vibrant health and true healing. Until next time, live better and stay well.